so I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Chris Pellman, the Manager of Process Optimization at AG Processing. She's here with us in person, so let's give her a warm welcome.
Well, thanks, Claire, and thanks to DataBank. I'll have to say that I am one of the people that am always campaigning for more user interaction. I really like to see and hear about how others are using OnBase, so that's coming from me. I'm also I have to give a shameless plug that if you're not a member of the Highland, Vogue, and OSEG communities, go out there and take a minute and join those communities, especially the OSEG group, which I'm currently the president of. We're always looking for new members. We have a couple open positions on our board. If you're interested, contact me via our OSEG portal, and I can get you more information. So I am going to talk to you a little bit about a solution that we're working on. I think managing user access, let's get our slides going here. Managing user access to your network and computer applications, it's probably something that everyone faces in some way, shape, or form. Complexity probably varies from company to company. But at AGP, we are a corporate office located in Omaha, Nebraska, but we have processing facilities located throughout the US, along with an export facility in Washington State. And managing our user access has become a challenge because over 40 years, we have a ton of in-house developed applications along with our enterprise applications such as Oracle and OnBase. Our OnBase application is relatively young. You know, we just implemented OnBase in 2016, started off with accounts payable like lots of other companies, and right now we have just over 20 life cycles that we're managing. So the problem that we are now trying to address is how are we going to manage our user identity? How can we keep track of and give people access to our systems and create a central record of every user and what they have access to? We needed a way to improve it for the requester, for the approver, and also for the setup process. Did I skip a slide? Where it began. Started off with this paper form, pretty much the worst form ever. And I have to say, I developed the form. But I had to follow a specific direction that everything had to be on one page. That became virtually impossible. When COVID hit, we decided it had to at least get into OnBase so that we could develop a simple workflow which helped a minuscule amount. At least we could figure out where it was at. Helped a little, not a lot, but then we started off a project that we're in development right now using OnBase, and we are partnering with DataBank, and we're developing a solution using WorkView. One of the biggest problems that we had is our users would send us their user setup information maybe the day before someone started, a lot of times the day they started. And so everything was just very slow. It took, we had to go through an approval process, it had to go through a setup process, and in the meantime, that new user, they're not getting a very good experience. They are waiting to be able to get into systems. So we just identified we needed to find a way to be more proactive, to get ahead of the curve. So we are partnering with our HR team to be able to get that information as soon as people are hired, as soon as people are going to transfer, or as soon as they're going to terminate. We're going to be utilizing what we're calling a role-based template, and I'll get into more information on that later. And we needed a way to eliminate the confusion so that everybody along the way understood what they were doing. We wanted a trackable history of who did it and when they did it. And we also needed to create an audit trail because we do audit this from time to time, both internally and externally. I'm going to be really proud if I don't drop the paper or the clicker. So what's going to happen here is when a new hire comes on, it's going to generate an action form for that person's manager or supervisor, and they're going to be reminded, hey, you need to get this done. You need to complete this action so that this new person can be set up. We're also going to be providing them with what we have called a role-based template. So we're giving them a starting point. Today they had no starting point. They had that blank form to try to figure out what they needed to give that user access to. In the world of a transfer is going to, the current manager will initiate the start of it. They'll decide if something needs to be, access needs to be held over in a transitional phase, and then the new manager will pick up and add anything that needs to be added as they move along. Because we identified that as a gap. We would have users that would keep some of their old access, but then somebody would lose track of it and it'd never get taken away. So we're going to be able to manage that within OnBase with some reminders, and we're getting rid of the old Outlook calendar reminders or the infamous sticky note. And then with the termination, it'll be a very simple process that it'll kick off the termination date and be able to have all of their access rights removed with the termination. So the role-based template. This is a role-based template for a senior accounting person at one of our plant locations. Once they go in and they choose that this is the new hire that they're bringing on board, it's going to create this template, and this new user is potentially going to have, you'll see the tabs along the top, they're potentially going to have access into these applications or programs. So Oracle, OnBase, Infor, Vista, Trackit, and so on. So then that manager is going to go into each one of these sections, and they're going to be able to see on the template that we have pre-identified, this is what we're going to set up for this user. And then at that point, they can either add more or take it away, because each one might be just slightly different. Our plants don't all run exactly the same, so they can add or remove as they need to. And this is another one for how the OnBase section, on the OnBase application access request would work. And we've got them organized by different areas. We have like accounting and operations. So not everybody would necessarily see everything. That would be extremely overwhelming. And then this slide gives you a little better view of, these are some of the options that they have within the drop-down list. So they can add or remove, and then when it's going through the workflow, as things are completed during the setup, then they can set it to active or clear. So that's how everybody kind of has their little ongoing checklist when they're performing the actions and it's happening in real life. And it's all color-coded, so it will be visually, given visual cues of what needs to be done. Another part of this that we had to really take into consideration is how we were going to get this through the approval process. So we have what we call an information owner, and that is the person that is responsible for approving that someone can have access to an application or a system. So you see that little 3-digit number. that is tied to what our information owner is. So 010 happens to be the information owner for our accounting and finance area. And so for this user, anything that is tied to 010, when it goes through the approval process, it will bundle it all together and give him one approval for everything that user is going to get access to, no matter what system. If it's an in-house system, an enterprise system, he'll be able to see if they're getting access to calendars, anything. And then we also feel like, as we've been building this system, we really needed to keep our finger on how we're going to maintain it. So this will be an easy way for us to be able to, as an approver leaves the company, we'll just have to slip in a new approver's name and it takes over. This is probably one of the biggest bottlenecks that we had. Was in our old process, everything happened sequential. So everything had to go through approval before it ever got into the setup phase. So in our new WorkView solution, everything is going to run in its own lane. So as soon as that request is approved at the very top, as soon as their network access is approved, the rest of it can all flow in. So once, as all of the access points are approved, the setup then starts off. So their network is approved, and then they're approved to have access, say, to OnBase. Then the OnBase setup person is notified immediately. So potentially, that person can be working in OnBase before, for example, their Oracle rights may not be completely set up or configured yet. So it's going to really keep things moving, that everything's going to run in its own lane instead of having to have that parallel ABC or that sequential ABC 1, 2, 3 process. Another area that we identified that was a gap is we have a few areas where once a user logs in, we need to be able to do some setup once they have logged in and they're active on our different systems. And so we're now going to be able to have a checkpoint that once they're logged in, then we know we have to finish up one more thing. That was another point that was just getting either tracked on a sticky note or an Outlook calendar or not tracked at all. So this is a look at what the history will look like. And again, this is in our dev system. We're still in the development. So if you're familiar with the good old manager account, you're seeing that everything looks like it's happening under manager. But think about this in a production environment, that the manager would be replaced with the actual username of who did the approvals, and it would show the dates that the approvals were completed, and then the usernames of who completed the setups. So we have that trackability. And then this user record is going to be a living record for the user from the start of their career at AGP until the end of their career. So this technically could span many, many years. So this screen is a screenshot of what it would look like after a user is completely set up. So this is, for example, what they might have set up in Oracle. And you can see there's some sections here that are collapsed. So this user doesn't have any access to, for example, the projects or the fixed assets modules. But if at some point in the future they needed it, then that's where they could expand it, and they would go in and choose to add it, creating that ongoing record for that user. But right now, this is where you can go in and see exactly what they have access to after the setup is complete. And there's what an on-base access point might look like. So we're really excited. We're looking forward to going live with our solution this summer. We feel like it's going to be a proactive solution. We're going to be able to provide a much faster turnaround, eliminate a huge amount of frustration for our users at multiple levels. It's going to be easier for the user. We're going to make it more streamlined. Big thing, that system of record, that people can go in and be able to see exactly what's going on, be able to have the trackability of who, what, when. And then in the future, a manager can go in and they can look and see what their staff has access to. The information owners can go in and see exactly who has access to systems that they are responsible for. We will be able to perform audits much more easily and efficiently, be able to have audits against, do a comparison between what we have in this system versus what do they actually have in the system itself. So be able to do comparison audits. Reporting, we're expecting to be able to have some more, develop more reporting as what users might need or want. And then we're going to also be managing our vendor access in this same system, so that when we set vendors up and we know we're setting them up for a certain period of time, we'll have triggers that'll be able to manage and take care of, that we're taking care to manage that just as diligently. So that's a look at the solution that we're working on at AGP.
Chris, that was wonderful. Let's open it up now to some questions. We have a few minutes, and I'd really like to know from our virtual attendees or from anyone here in Lincoln, what questions do you have for Chris?
And I have a couple of my team members here, and one person from our data bank development team is here too.
We do. We've got the whole crew. So we're ready for your questions. Let's open it up. Yes.
You talked about so many numbers to make it easy to track, so you don't have to change. You can just slip another name in there. Is it maintaining the history of who was originally in under that number and you update what have basis on, as opposed to what the next person came into that position?
Yes, it will keep that old username and information in there.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, Aaron.
Chris, what was the choice of WorkView versus, sorry, I got a mic. What was the choice of WorkView versus just maybe a form solution for all this data?
Good question, Aaron. We originally did think about trying to do this maybe in a Unity form, but we quickly found out it was just going to become too big, too cumbersome. WorkView just gives you a lot more flexibility to be able to manage the data and create different views, filters, versus trying to manage it in a more confined space.
All right, we've got one more.
Chris, how do you handle terminations, or so that employee no longer works for your company? You just take that employee record and route that through a workflow again, or?
Yep, that's exactly what's going to happen. Whatever that employee record as it stands when they terminate, it will flow through workflow, so every application that they have access to, that will flow into their that person responsible to take away whatever they have to take away in terms of terminating a user. They'll basically be doing their setup in reverse and have to will have trackability that they did complete it, because we know today it might not always be happening.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chris. We so appreciate you being here today with us.